I will be doing my IOP on Another Evening at the Club by Alifa Rifat. Alifa Rifat is a very controversial writer as she addresses several issues in the Egyptian society. She addresses gender inequality problems and humanitarian inequality problems. She displays how wealth and societal differences in class influence the series of events in Another Evening at the Club. For example, she starts off by comparing the status of Samia's father and Aboud Bey's status and how this influences the actions they do. For example, when the father is pulling out a cigarette, he is extracting a cigarette with trembling fingers. This kinetic image of him trembling while he's pulling out a cigarette shows that he lacks confidence and that he is very uncomfortable around Aboud Bey, which shows that the father is almost scared of Aboud Bey. While when Aboud Bey pulls out his cigarette, he sat back, crossing his legs, and took out a cigarette, which shows how Aboud Bey is very comfortable and very confident, even though he is not in his house. The house is the father's, which should mean that the father is more comfortable. Although how Aboud Bey is more comfortable than the father in the father's house shows how wealth influences the society in Egypt, as wealth also displays the confidence when people are communicating with one another. Furthermore, when the father is coming to light his cigarette, he pulls out a box of matches. A box of matches is usually related to a lower class person as it is expensive to buy a lighter, while Aboud Bey produces his lighter. And as I said earlier, the lighter is for people with more money, as it is more expensive. This shows that the difference between the matches and the lighter show the difference between the father and Aboud Bey. Furthermore, the box of matches symbolizes how the father is a more natural version of himself. This is evident as the matches are made out of a natural component, being wood, while Aboud Bey's lighter symbolizes how Aboud Bey displays this artificial version of himself to please his peers. This is shown as the lighter is made out of chemicals and does not have any natural components, which displays the difference between the father's character and Aboud Bey's character. To continue, Aboud Bey has a very big salary, which just displays his high socioeconomic status, while the father, who is borrowing on the security of the government pensions, which shows that he is not wealthy and he is needing to borrow money as he does not have enough financial backing. Furthermore, Khalifa Rifat shows the significance of wealth to Samia's family and how wealth is the most important factor to low-class societies in Egypt. She does this by showing how the father, who says, "As from today, she'll be staying at home in readiness for your happy life together, God permitting." Samia, the girl in the story, is only in secondary school and she has not completed her education. But the father is willing to sacrifice her education so that she'll get to marry this wealthy man. Furthermore, her mother told her that she's a very lucky girl and that he's a real find and that any girl would be happy to have him, that he is an inspector of irrigation. The important part in this quote is that he is an inspector of irrigation and how the mother highlights this, and she doesn't highlight any other components of his character except that he has a high job position. Furthermore, she says that he earns a big salary, which shows that she cares about the amount of money he has. And she also says that he gets a fully furnished government house wherever he's posted, which will save us the expense of setting up a house, which show that she is constantly referring to his wealth status and the way that will help them, which shows that the family does not really care about Aboud Bey's character, but they care more about the wealth and his social status. This is also shown that throughout all the interactions with her mother and father, they do not tell Samia anything about his character, but repetitively mention his wealth and his social status. Alifa Rifat also highlights the dysfunctional relationship between Samia and Aboud Bey, and how this dysfunctional relationship is due to Aboud Bey being at a higher socioeconomic status than Samia. For example, in page 256, he has reminded her that she was marrying someone with a brilliant career in front of him. This is important as Aboud Bey is almost belittling Samia, as he is constantly reminding her that he is better than her and that he has a brilliant career in front of him, and that she doesn't have anything, and that her only responsibility is to make him look good. Furthermore, he says he went up to her and gently patted her cheeks in a fatherly, reassuring gesture that he was often to repeat during their times together. Even though some may interpret this as a gender issue, I believe that this reassuring gesture on her face may also relate to him being at a higher status than her. As later on in the short story, Aboud Bey slaps the maid who apparently stole the emerald ring, which shows how Aboud Bey talks to people or communicates to people at a lower socioeconomic status, and that this gentle pat on her cheek relates to the slap he gave to the maid. Furthermore, he says, there's no point in your saying anything, but I think it would be as well as if you were present when I talked to her. When he says that, he's basically implying that the reason there's no point of her telling the maid anything is that she is close to the maid's socioeconomic status, while he is far from it, which shows that him talking to the maid will do much more than her talking to the maid. Furthermore, Aboud Bey abuses his power with lower class people. In page 257, when he believed that the maid stole the emerald ring, he stood up and gave her a sudden slap on the face. This shows how he does not oblige on the law of not hitting other people, and he does not respect her humanitarian rights by hitting her and suddenly slapping her on the face. The girl then reeled back, put one hand to her cheek, then lowered it again to her chest, and did not answer to any of Aboud's questions, as she was very afraid of him. This shows that the wealth that Aboud Bey possesses is an abuse of power, as even though the maid did not steal it and that she tried to fight it, as soon as he hit her, as soon as he slapped her, which symbolized his higher superiority to hers, she wasn't able to talk as she was extremely scared, and she realized that she is at a lower position, meaning that she does not have the ability to speak up. And then, when Aboud Bey talks to the police officer, he says, of course, I haven't got any actual proof, but it's obvious that she pinched it. This shows that without Aboud Bey having any proof or any evidence that the maid stole the emerald ring, he was able to convince the police officer that she took it, which is against the law, as the law requires there to be evidence of a crime. But Aboud Bey's wealth provided him with the power to not oblige by the law and further push and blame the maid for this crime that she did not commit. Furthermore, in page 258, he says, I know your people have their way and means. When he does that, he is basically telling the police officer that you can torture her and that you'll be able to get the information out of her, even though that is against the law. This shows that Aboud Bey abuses his power with lower class people. Furthermore, how Aboud Bey acts around other people with his socio-economic level is very important, and it is displayed very well by Khalifa Rifat. For example, in page 256, he says, one of the most important things in life was the opinion of others, particularly one's equal and seniors. This shows his artificial character, as even though his character might not be like that, he has to display this persona of himself so that he can look good in front of others, which show that when you're at a higher economic level, when you're at a higher social status, you care more about the opinion of others, and that is displayed by this quote. In page 259, he says, after he finds out that the maid did not steal the ring, he says, by now the whole town knows the servant stole the ring. Or would you like me to tell them everyone? Look, folks, the fact is that the wife got a bit tiddy on a couple of sips of beer, and the ring took off on its own and hid itself behind the dressing table, mocking the wife and her apparent stupidity for misplacing the ring. But another important factor in another important part in this quote is when he says that the wife got a bit tiddly on a couple of sips of beer. Usually, lower class people follow follow the religion more than higher class people, and they're less accustomed to drinking. And he shows that only by a couple of sips of beer she got tipsy, she got a bit tiddly, which shows how he is almost mocking the fact that she does not drink, even though she is following her religion, which is kind of pushing, telling her that he is at the higher class and that she is a lower class. And further, he says, we'd be this laughing stock of the town, which truly symbolizes, which truly signifies how he cares about how the town looks at him, and how the people within his socioeconomic level talk about him, as he shows how that he does not want to be the laughing stock of the town. Khalifa Rifat wants to show that Aboud Bey's interactions with society are all interlinked with his affluence and class status.